planetary princesses, and you have landed on our planet. A spell has been cast, and now you are one of us.
Hello and welcome to Planetary Princesses, your royal invitation to the cosmos. I'm Kate.
And I'm Ashlee.
And today we are so ready to dive into the chart of none other than Taylor Swift. In this episode, we are going to be breaking down Taylor's natal chart, unpacking her sun, moon, Venus, Mars, and a few other sparkly placements that help shape her energy, artistry, and iconic eras.
I'm so excited for this, Kate. So this is going to be actually part one of our Swiftie special. So today is all about her natal chart, her cosmic blueprint. In part two, we're going to go a little bit deeper into her asteroids and the astrology behind her biggest career and personal moments. But for now, let's get into the chart of a girl who was born in Sagittarius season and never looked back.
This is going to be great. And Ashlee, we both listened to Taylor Swift when we were getting ready today.
Yeah.
That was so much fun.
What were you listening to?
So I started out by putting on a Spotify playlist that was Taylor Swift happy songs. So I got a nice mix of all different eras. And then I also put on her Eras tour on Disney Plus, and I just started it from the beginning. So I got a little Cruel Summer, Lover era, and then into a little bit of Fearless before we started talking. But what did you listen to?
And the Lover album. And when I was looking at it, I wanted to be in like the pop bubblegum mode where everything felt a little dreamy, a little cotton candy-ish. And when I was looking at the album cover, I'm like, wait, I have a shirt that matches this. So I put it right on, my pastel cotton candy blue and pink shirt. But even better than my shirt, we need to talk about what's in your background. I am obsessed with that bodysuit, like obsessed. And the necklace around it. We need to talk about that.
My gosh, you're so sweet. Well, essentially, of course, I'm a Swiftie. We're doing this episode. And for my Eras Tour show, I was very fortunate to attend 3 shows. I attended opening night in Glendale. I went to a Kansas City show. And then I also went to the closing night of the North American leg in Indianapolis. And that is when I made my Taylor Swift Lover bodysuit. I'm a super crafty person and I really wanted to do something special. So I did a full recreation of the bodysuit in the blue and pink. And I learned how to sew sequins. I did rhinestoning. Ashlee, I know you are a rhinestoning queen. So you appreciate the level of work that went into it. And it was so much fun. And the necklace I also made as well. I did, Taylor wears a Versace necklace on stage. Obviously, I can't afford Versace yet. So I decided to make my own. Something to note also, the sequins I used in my bodysuit are from the same website that Taylor's actual sequins from her bodysuit are from. And yes. So I just love this. Thank you for letting me talk about that for a little bit.
I was thinking maybe those sequins on your bodysuit are from the same lot, like the same production line that went on Taylor's. So it makes you really connected.
Oh my gosh, I felt connected to her. And I was so lucky that the show that I went to, it was the 3rd night of Indianapolis, and she actually wore this version of the bodysuit during the show. And my friends that I was with have a video of me like screaming. I realized I was in the same bodysuit as her on the same night. So yeah, super, super fun. Love being a crafty girl in the name of Taylor Swift. And so we got to talk about who is Taylor Swift and why do we love her? Right? That's a good place to start.
Who is Taylor Swift?
Yes. I mean, people probably know, but she is a pop star icon. She's been in the public eye since 2006 when her self-titled debut album came out when she was 16. And she's been around for 2 decades, 19 years to be exact, as of 2025. So many eras. We've literally grown up with her. You know, I'm actually very close in age to Taylor, so I truly feel like my whole life has kind of been just, she's telling the story of my life as I'm going through it. You know what I mean?
Love it. I feel like I'm a lot older than her, but at the same time, we probably have the same maturity level. So that works.
Taylor's a woman for the people. She's like, her lyrics are really what I think sets her apart as a pop star. The way she actually writes her own lyrics and captures the moments that no one else notices, like the quiet ache of being overlooked or the rush of a secret crush, the silent strength it takes to move on. She's just amazing at writing the stories of our lives.
Yeah, there's like something almost mystical about the way how she turns personal emotion into like something universal, like a big experience. It's like she was reading our journals or diaries and gave shape to feelings that we might not have even had words for. And I feel like she moves through the world with this rare blend of vulnerability and command, soft when she wants to be, but also super, super strong when she needs to be. And she reminds us that it's okay to feel really deeply, to really feel our feelings, but also still at the same time hold our growth. That growth doesn't mean just like letting go of everything you've done and thinking back and poofing it away, but it's about learning how to carry it with way more grace. And in doing so, she gives us permission to be the same. She knows how to channel like heartbreak into magic, and we've watched her turn pain into poetry and betrayal into boundaries, which I need to learn how to do, and longing into legacy. So she speaks for the people, definitely me, maybe you too, like people who feel a lot, like we're sensitive, we can be overthinkers, but at the same time we're romantic, and we're also like late night journal writers.
Yes, exactly. Baby, we're the new romantics. Okay. I feel like she has a line for every single moment of emotional experience that I've ever felt. And so she really owns her narrative through her lyrics, her re recordings, her tour strategy. She's constantly reclaiming her voice. And like you said, her storytelling is mythic. Like her songs are full of archetypes. She's so smart. Travis knows how to ball, and she knows Aristotle. She has got all the poetry in her brain. She's so knowledgeable about the history of writing, and her songs are full of archetypes like the girl in the dress and the anti-hero and the mirror ball and the mastermind. And something amazing about her is she's not afraid to grow in public. We've watched her stumble, evolve, and come back stronger. And she owns her contradictions and reframes her past and really gives permission for the rest of us to do the same. And loving Taylor feels like loving someone who's figuring it out right alongside us. She's not perfect. She doesn't claim to be. And that's just the best thing about Taylor, in my opinion. I just love her so much.
You're so right. I've had so many, like, in my past, maybe a few in the more recent past, where I've had some emotional breakdowns in public through maybe work or through friends where I look back and I cringe, but Taylor gives me the inspiration to make that into something meaningful and own it. It's something about showing all the sides of you, even the darker ones. It's sexy, it's authentic, and it's also really, really magnetic. So she totally like gives us that strength. So, what are your favorite Taylor albums? Do you have a favorite?
Yes. It's so
Yes.
hard to pick a favorite because she embodies so many different archetypes, like we just said. But my favorite album is Speak Now, which came out in 2010. And I love this album because she wrote 100% of it herself. She got some criticism of her previous albums, of even though she was this amazing songwriter and she wrote so much of her albums, there was some criticism like, well, she doesn't write all of her stuff. She claims to be a songwriter, but she doesn't write everything. And
Oh
so
no.
Speak Now, she said, I'm writing 100% of this album myself to prove a point that this is what I do. And so I just love that album. And I mentioned earlier, I went to a show in Kansas City for the Eras tour, and I was there the night after she announced the Taylor's version of Speak Now. And it was just amazing to be part of that, being that it was my favorite album. People that know the Eras tour know that she doesn't do very many songs from Speak Now in the show. She only has one. She did Enchanted, which is a great song, but definitely, like, no offense to Enchanted, there were other songs that I wished I would have heard as well, but being part of that Speak Now release weekend for Taylor's version was just made it even more solidified that it was my favorite album. And also her vault track, Speak Now, Timeless, that song makes me sob every single time I hear it. It's such a beautiful song. And if I had had that song at the time of my wedding, I actually got engaged around 2011 and the album came out in 2010. So if that had been out when I got married, I absolutely would have had that as my first dance song. I love it. And also, I love the Easter eggs that she leaves in her liner notes. Like, she used to do that in the early albums. She would put capitalized letters in the lyric book, and it would give you like a secret message about the hidden meaning of the song. And so Speak Now, I remember like pouring through that book, like, oh my gosh, like that's the hidden message, and just totally love that. And if I had to pick a second favorite album, I would definitely pick Tortured Poets Department. I love Tortured Poets. I'm a wordy girl, okay? I love albums that are super wordy. It must be my Mars and Gemini, like
I was going
wanting
to say
to
Mars and Gemini.
like wanting to memorize all the lyrics. And also I was fortunate to have as one of my surprise songs in Indianapolis, she played The Bolter. And I absolutely love The Bolter. I freaked out. She mashed it up with Death by a Thousand Cuts, lost my mind. It was amazing. So those are definitely my top two favorite albums if I had to pick. But what are your favorite albums?
All of them, but let's maybe I did like her when she was more into country. I do like country music, but I think my earliest favorite album of hers would be 1989 because it dropped during 2014, which was like a really chaotic era of my life where my personality was way more unhinged. It's probably where I went through a lot more like emotional and wild breakdowns. But at the same time, I was going through like spiritual awakening, and I was, as Kylie Jenner would say, I was realizing stuff. I was starting to like see the world differently, and I was peeling back the illusions, and I was really beginning to question like the world and everything that I know. So I feel like the sounds of 1989 was a sound of freedom. It represented me stepping into like a more experimental, maybe glittery, maybe like just wild and unhinged version of myself. The music has like a sparkly defiance to it. It's like dancing in the ruins and choosing to shine anyway, kind of. It gave me permission to release, which wasn't mine to carry anymore, and to shake it off and to become someone like braver and maybe even louder and more me, even though definitely unhinged. So then over time, like Taylor, I went through a lot of eras. I have Pluto on my ascendant, so era, like every week.
Yes, definitely.
Yes. We'll have to do an episode about that. But anyway, Folklore came out right when I became a mother. So it was like the summer of 2020. And that whole year 2020 was like a roller coaster for the world, pretty much. It was a time where the world felt like really fragile and uncertain. We were all isolated, not knowing what was going to happen, like holding our breath, like what is going on in this world. But for me personally, that isolation was layered with something really, really personal because I just given birth and I was like overwhelmingly in love with my daughter. I still am. But in those quiet days of Folklore, it was my companion, and the album felt sacred and it felt still, like I was sitting beside a rain-soaked window in a cabin far away, nursing my daughter and just enjoying the changes. And then, of course, I'm going to have to talk, I'm so cliche, I'm going to have to say that Midnights is my other favorite album. It came out right when I gave birth to my second daughter. So I was like deep in this season of sleepless nights and soft baby skin and the quiet hum of a home that never really felt settled, just like in that in between space. Like I wasn't fully awake and I wasn't quite dreaming. So Taylor's album really met me there. It felt like it was written by someone who knows how to overthink like me and to revisit the same thought in like 100 different ways. But at the same time, like I found beauty in the process. And that's when like Taylor really started becoming like the mastermind of my inner world. I'm really under her spell, aren't I? But it just reminds me of it just reminds me of like the days I would sit in my room with like so much caffeine and coffee, and I would take out my guitar and just play along with that album. That's another thing I love about Taylor. You can like really, if you're a musician of any kind, you can play along with her songs really easily. Like they're catchy and they're easy to follow along with. And the album now makes me feel really nostalgic, maybe a little haunted in some ways, because becoming a mother makes you feel a little haunted in some ways, but also like strangely hopeful, like someone was holding my hand through the fog. So this album captured a soft underbelly of my confidence, the dreams that I rarely do say out loud, and also the quiet magic of motherhood in the most unfiltered form. So yeah, those are my
Wow.
favorites.
So beautiful. I'm so glad Taylor, what her music and her spirit was a friend to you, especially during those times when you were becoming a mom and having your second baby as well. That's so beautiful. And that's what I love about Taylor is when people talk about their favorite albums, it's like when you were going through a time in your life that you needed someone to really relate to how you were feeling. And that's like how I felt with Tortured Poets. I love how long that album is because there's something for every feeling that I had during that era of my life. And I just love how you described how you connected to her albums because so beautiful. And Folklore, oh,
Thanks.
imagining you're in a cabin with your baby, the dreaminess. Ooh, I love that so much.
Yeah, I
Aw.
definitely needed that. And Taylor was definitely like my parasocial bestie. So she still is.
She's all of our parasocial besties, and that's why we love her. And so now that we talked about our favorite albums, just letting you know our Swiftie inner workings, let's talk about her chart, okay? Here we go. Her birthday is December 13th, 1989. She was born in Reading, Pennsylvania, and that makes her a Sagittarius Sun and a Cancer Moon. And right away, ooh, we blend in
It's
fire and water
fire
here.
and water.
Yes, she's fiery and she's watery. And I think we all could have probably guessed that without even knowing that she's a Sagittarius Sun and Cancer Moon. Her Sagittarius Sun makes her seen as confident and radiant in public. And then deep down, her Cancer Moon makes her emotionally sensitive and guarded in private. So there's a lot more going on beneath the surface than people realize with Taylor. And it's giving needing freedom on the outside, but deep down craving closeness. The Sagittarius Sun values independence and space, while the Cancer Moon needs connection and care. And so there's an ongoing dance between wanting to run free and then needing to be held. And I love that blend of the elements for her.
Yeah, so leave a comment if you have a fire sun and a water moon, because we want to know if you relate to that. That's so cool. Also, her rising sign. So we talked about in our first episode, the sun is your outer personality, sort of. Your moon is like your inner, like who you are deep down and who when you're alone. But your rising sign is so important because that's what you look like and how people really see you. And it's also the spark of energy that comes when someone first meets you. And it's also on top of everything you do. So if you go back to our first episode, your intro to the big three and the planetary princesses, you'll get kind of a description of what your sun, moon, and rising is in a deeper level. But with Taylor Swift, we don't know her rising sign because we don't know what time she was born. However, there are two widely discussed birth times for Taylor Swift. There's like two different books out and they each have a different time that she was born. So most likely she's either a Scorpio rising or a Capricorn rising. And it's important to remember that none of these times that we're going to talk about were officially confirmed by Taylor Swift or her family. And I also want to point out that even though these two times that she might have been born are only 3 hours apart, they totally changed the layout of her birth chart. Can you tell us why it's really important to have our exact birth time?
Yes, it's so important to have your exact birth time when you're looking at a chart and you're taking the rising sign into account, because the degree of your rising sign can change about every 4 minutes. And there's 30 degrees in each sign. So you, even just a few minutes off, could make you a late degree Scorpio rising or an early degree Sagittarius rising. That completely changes your chart, the expression of everything. And so, like we said, we are going to talk about the rising signs that we have out there for Taylor. But when we talk about her placements in her chart, we're not going to talk about the houses, because that's really what the rising sign determines in your chart. It determines the layout of your houses and which house each planet falls into. And so, because we can't confirm for sure because of the lack of the definitive birth time, we'll talk about the rising signs, but we won't talk about the houses when we talk about her planetary placements later in the reading. So right now, let's talk about the rising a little bit. We'll talk about both. The first rising sign we have is 5:17 a.m. This makes her a Scorpio rising in astrology, and this is from the source, the 2015 biography Tay, the Taylor Swift Story by Jill Parker. And this book is described as an unreliable biographical source, as it lacks citations or external verification for this information. But we're still going to talk about it a little bit anyway. And also, there was the British AA journal Stellar suggested this time in its November 2024 edition, finding it to be the most likely based on their research. So some sources do think that this is correct. And a Scorpio rising is someone who will appear more mysterious and maybe shy, intimidating, definitely sexy, and maybe a little quiet at first. And a Scorpio rising face, because your rising determines also how your appearance and how you look, a Scorpio rising face tends to be magnetic, intense, and hard to forget. And there's something about their presence that feels powerful, even when they're not speaking. And with the Scorpio rising, their eyes are the main event. They're often deep set, almond shaped, hooded, almost hypnotic gaze, like eyes penetrating your soul when they look at you. So I think that could definitely fit Taylor. You know, her eyes are one of those features that people really talk about as being one of her most definitive features. Her eyes definitely are a little hooded. They're more on the almond shaped side. And I think she does have that kind of stare. A lot of her albums, especially the Reputation album, it's literally her face just penetrating your soul. Like, that's such a Scorpio rising expression on the Reputation album cover. So I definitely think, a contender for her rising sign. But Ashlee, let's have you describe her other rising sign that you actually think might be more correct.
I think it's correct, and I will debate it till I pass out. So if she was a Scorpio rising, she'd be born at 5:17 a.m. But if she was born at the other time that's being told, 8:36 a.m., and that would make her a Capricorn rising. So this time was given in a book called Inside Taylor Nation: True Encounters with Taylor Swift by Sarah Oliver. So this will make her a Capricorn rising, and I really think that this is her, because it just like kind of makes sense if you look at her whole chart if you put Capricorn rising. So how would a Capricorn rising tend to appear? Definitely more proper. Like, they're not going to go into a place and like make a scene. They tend to follow the rules. And Taylor, when you look at her, she does have like that more composed and stoic look, where she's not going to make a scene right there. She's going to go home and write about it and make art about it. So her actual look and appearance is more composed. It gives off like a quiet authority, I would say, elegance, and a sense that their life and like what they're wearing, just everything looks really put together, I would say. Even if she just rolled out of bed, she still looks put together. There's a natural structure to her face, and even like a maturity to her appearance. Like, She just has it all together. It's often paired with a calm and more grounded energy that feels trustworthy. And I also want to add that 8:36 a.m., the degree that her Capricorn rising would be at would be between like 8 and 9 degrees. And the symbol of that degree is an angel playing a harp. So if you have your rising sign at Capricorn of this degree, it does give you a musical, angelic kind of look, and also gives you like something musical about you that really works, which is another reason I think she's a Capricorn. But like you were saying, like she could give up the Scorpio look also. What do you think?
Well, I mean, you made some great points with that Capricorn rising there. And I do think that the Capricorn rising is probably more likely because, as we're going to talk about later on, she has a Capricorn stellium. And when you have a stellium and your rising is included, it kind of makes you a super version of those traits. And I feel like Taylor, the way she's built her career, step by step, climbing up the mountain consistently over time, that is very Capricorn vibes. And I do think she has that kind of, like you're saying, proper, composed vibe, especially when she goes on the red carpet. Like she has never gone on the red carpet or made a public appearance where she looks disheveled or messy at all. And not that a Scorpio rising would, but I feel like a Capricorn rising definitely would be super proper, super put together. So I do think that that is more likely. But what I think is really cool about this, it's like because she has these two specific birth times out there, it's kind of like she has two destinies in the public eye. And, you know, maybe she likes the mystery out there. Like these dual charts kind of reflect the emotional shapeshifter that she is throughout the eras. You know, like sometimes she's a witch at the fire, very Scorpio rising. Other times she's the angel with the harp, the Capricorn rising with the degree at 8 or 9 degrees. And sometimes she disappears and resurrects like a Scorpio rising. Other times she builds the empires of her career in the daylight, which is very Capricorn rising. So, you know, it really makes sense that someone who invents herself over and over so completely, like musically, visually, emotionally, that she has two sets of stars that she was potentially born under. And this ambiguity kind of keeps the myth alive. Like maybe she's supposed to be holding both truths of a Scorpio rising and a Capricorn rising. And I think that could be like why we love her so much, because we see reflections of our own growth journey process, the parts that are still growing and shape-shifting, going through the chapters of our lives. So I really think that it's almost a perfectly intentional way for her to exist in the public eye, is not having an exact birth time out there. And if you're a fan of Taylor, we would love for you to let us know in the comments which birth time you think she was born at based on our reading and analysis. Like, do you think she's a Scorpio rising or do you think she's a Capricorn rising? Please let us know. We would love to see if your team Ashlee's research here on it.
Yeah, I would love to know what you all think of that. So I guess for the rest of this reading, we're going to really talk about like what we do know based on just her birthday.
Yes. Everything we say now is definitively true. This is definitively what is in her birth chart. And
Facts.
we're going to facts. Yes. And we're going to start with the sun in Sagittarius. So everybody knows she was born on December 13th. This makes her a Sagittarius. And first, let's quickly talk about what the sun sign is. Your sun sign is based on where the sun appeared in the sky from your exact position on Earth at the moment you were born. And it's determined by the date of your birth, and it reflects the zodiac constellation that the sun was moving through at the time. So you can think of it like a cosmic spotlight. The sun was shining from a specific direction in space, and that direction lines up with your sun sign. And also, astrologically, the sun represents your core essence. It's your life force, it's your ego, your creative spark, it's the you that your soul is growing into. It's your natural confidence, and it's the way you light up a room without even trying. And it shows how you lead and how you express your most authentic self.
Aw. So at our core, yeah, Taylor is a Sagittarius sun, and it really shows because Sagittarius is the sign of a wild heart, a sharp mind, and also an eternal seeker, always looking for more knowledge. The sign of Sagittarius is ruled by the planet Jupiter, which is the planet that makes everything bigger, the planet of expansions and big visions. And this energy fuels Taylor's instinct to dream bigger, think bigger, and to speak louder. At the same time, she's a songwriter, like you were saying before, that she writes most of her own songs, but she's so much more than that. She's a storyteller, and her lyrics often feel like arrows, like dipped in precision, aimed, but also dabbed with poetry at the same time. And this solar placement explains so much about her bold reinventions, her craving for meaning, and her refusal to stay in one creative box, because Sagittariuses, you cannot put them in a box. Like, they need to always be free and to explore. Sagittarius is always searching for the truth behind chaos, and Taylor does exactly that. She turns heartbreaks into hooks, scandals into strategy, which I love, and personal growth into different kinds of errors that are all sparkly. When she writes, it's sort of like she's charting the hero's journey of a woman who evolves in real time. So Sagittarius, and no wonder every album of hers feels like a brand new chapter. Like I said, a Sagittarius sun is always moving, aiming high, always becoming, and always just a little bit ahead of the curve.
She's such a Sagittarius at her core. And like a true Sagittarius, she can't stay still for long. And it makes
Yeah.
her a restless explorer. She moves through genres. She went from country from her albums Taylor Swift, Fearless, and Speak Now, to country pop from her album Red, then some synth pop from her album 1989. Then she got into a darker electric pop from her album Reputation. Then she did sweet bubblegum pop from her album Lover. And then she moved to indie folk from her albums Folklore and Evermore. Then she did dreamy pop from her album Midnights. And then to her latest Tortured Poets department, the poetic alternative pop. Like, this girl, she cannot do the same thing over and over again. She has to have that restless vibe of a Sagittarius journeying through the genres. And I think that's something so special about her evolution. It's kind of wild, and yet everything seemed to align so seamlessly when you listen to her whole discography. It all sounds like Taylor Swift. And this ability to grow and adapt and transform while still making it work is something you often see in people with strong mutable sign energy. Mutable signs are Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, and Sagittarius. They're all connected to the changing of the seasons, as you may have learned from our last few episodes of the signs through the seasons. Mutable signs are naturally flexible, fluid, and open to reinvention. They close out the season, so they don't just accept change, they move with it, and they turn transitions into creative breakthroughs. And when someone has mutable energy in their chart, like Taylor does in her sun sign, they can shift forms without losing their essence. And they can evolve in ways that feel both natural and inspired. And it's that kind of shape-shifting magic that turns personal growth into a story the rest of us can follow. And that's just a beautiful essence of Sagittarius that Taylor carries in her soul energy. And Ashlee, we got to talk about how she moved cities a lot too, because
Yes.
Sagittarius loves to travel.
We love to travel and we love to move. And when you were saying that, I had a literal breakthrough. People who are watching us on YouTube probably have noticed by now how I cannot freaking stay still for anything. I'm trying, I know I'm in front of a camera, so I'm going to be very grounded and calm and smooth, but I'm not. I'm kind of bouncing around. And I was always known for that growing up, as the kid who can't stay still. But yeah, I just thought I would add that. Maybe that's because of my Sagittarius.
Yes.
Yeah, my lovely 11-degree
Definitely.
Sagittarius sun. But Taylor has moved cities a lot, as you said. Yes, she went from Pennsylvania. Fans, Virgos, please don't get mad, but the city is called Wyomissing, Pennsylvania, her childhood home. And she was born and raised on a Christmas tree farm. So sweet.
Ashlee, I gotta tell you, the Christmas tree farm is giving Capricorn rising. That's,
Oh, yeah.
being born on a
That's the one
Christmas
I
tree
wanted.
farm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh,
I
so
just had to
good.
say that.
We have to
Anyway.
put another vote in the pot for her being a Capricorn rising.
Yes.
But that's like where she, I guess, was a kid, learned how to play music, because eventually she moved with her family to Nashville, Tennessee. And that's where she got signed and became like this country music star at 16. And then around 2014, she moved to New York City. And that's when she reinvented herself into a pop star, where she was like more bold, New York City, and stylish and cosmopolitan. Oh, and then she was dating that dude, Joe Allen, from 2016
Yes.
to 2023. And she went a little international to England and London. She spent some significant time there during her relationship with him. And she also has a seasonal home in Watch Hill, Rhode Island. And like that really inspired her folklore and her evermore cottagecore visual and moods and lyrics. So her journey through countless cities and eras is so Sagittarius. She's a seeker at heart. She's driven by an insatiable curiosity for life, truth, and transformation. So whether she's changing like zip codes or genres or identity, it's really part of her instinct to expand and to grow and to really explore that full spectrum of who she can be. Her life unfolds like a cross-country map, not just like marked by destinations, but by the winding roads ahead of her and between. And each city will become a milestone. Each city is a detour into a new sound, a new story, and a new self. So every stop along the way will capture a different version of her, reinvented, yet unmistakably her, which is how we get so many different albums. And this wanderlust of her, it's emotional, it's creative, and it's spiritual. A Sagittarius soul doesn't stay still for that long. And Taylor's evolution proves that the journey is the destination.
Yes. And then also, even on Tortured Poets, she had the song Florida that she turned a place into a song. And what's funny is that she's actually been spending a lot of time in Florida with Travis during his training for the Kansas City Chiefs. So she's been in Florida. She used Florida as a metaphor. And then she also has a new home in Kansas City, like where she is with Travis and he gets to support his team and that vibe. So yes, she just, I mean, we will definitely see her going to more places in the future. I don't think we can ever bet on Taylor staying in one spot for too long. And Ashlee, you and I know a lot about this because we are both Sagittariuses. And so, I mean, if you're a Sagittarius, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll physically move places. You might just kind of travel in your mind as well. Sometimes Sagittariuses are big readers. And so we don't want to pigeonhole you Sagittariuses if you didn't move around a lot, but I certainly did. I
Yeah,
actually,
you did.
yeah, I was born in Michigan and then I moved to New Jersey, a little bit outside of New York City. Then I moved to Kansas. Then I moved to Arizona, which is where I currently live, but I also made a stop to Tallahassee, Florida along the way. And my family also had some connections to Canada for a time. And so, yes, I just totally relate to the Sagittarius wanderlust traveler vibe. And now that I live in Arizona, I'm constantly like planning my trips where I'm going to go visit other places. And that's just how I express my Sagittarius Taylor Swift wanderer vibe.
You're in your desert babe era.
Yes.
The
Yes.
cactuses and your succulents.
I love it. And then you've moved around too a lot.
Yeah, so I was born in New Jersey, and then I moved to Long Island, and then I moved upstate New York for college, and then I moved back to New Jersey. So, I mean, people who live in that area kind of do flip-flop around a lot. But then from there, it kind of got a little more wild. I traveled a lot to Seattle, to Florida, because I had family there. I worked in Korea, South Korea, for a little while, which was awesome.
Damn.
Yeah, it was so cool. I love being the exotic girl. And I traveled to New Zealand, to Europe, oh, to South America. I have family in Uruguay. And then one day when I was, how old was I? Old? 37, so not that old, but kind of old. I moved to California, to San Francisco, the city. And then I met my husband and we moved to the suburbs right outside of the city. So yeah, I definitely travel around a lot, but even more, I travel a lot in my head. Like one of my favorite activities when I get bored is I go on Google Maps and I pick like a random country and town and I investigate it, which is so Sagittarius. Like I'm
Ashley,
really
I do
into
that too. I
no
do that
way.
too. Yes, I literally, when I'm bored, I'll like pull up Google Maps and I'll turn on satellite view and I'll look at a random place and like, yes. So I love that. We have that in common.
What? So I need to know, Sagittarius's chime in. Is your moon in Sag? Is your sun in Sag? Do you do this? Because literally I was just in Russia the other day, not physically, but in my head, exploring the cities like, ooh, look at that convenience store. Like, just awesome.
So funny. And you know what just came to my mind is that Taylor has the song I Hate It Here. And she says, I'll travel to secret gardens in my mind. And
Ooh.
so she literally talks about that in one of her songs, like how not only does she physically travel, but even when she's feeling like isolated in the world and where she's in a place where she literally hates it there, she travels to secret gardens in her mind. And wow.
So good. I love it. And I just love how she like tells the truth. She tells it like how it is, which is so Sagittarius energy. Because Sagittarius is like sometimes we just can't help it and we just spill the truth, even though it ruffles feathers, which really bothers my personal Libra rising. But I'm a Sagittarius. So, like, with Taylor Swift, from open letters to corporations to calling out media narratives, she often uses her voice to stand up for what she believes in. And she's got like this poetic spine of steel.
Yeah. And I actually have a Mercury in Sagittarius. So I love when she pops off. It just really resonates with me. And Sagittarius people are also really playful and witty. They're the Joker of the zodiac. Like, let's not forget that. And so her sharp one liners, her clever metaphors, and her Easter egg laced rollouts really show her playful brilliance. And she has that quote where she's like, "Oh, was I wrong for writing those songs like myself and being in the house that I bought and doing all this stuff?" Like, I forget the exact quote, but she's such a witty person, and that's so Sagittarius of her. And her sun is at 21 degrees Sagittarius, which happens to be the Sagittarius degree, and that really amps her up. It gives her the performer's charisma and the star power and the instinct to turn personal experience into creative gold. And there's a deep need here to be seen as someone who brings light and meaning to others. And it also sharpens her sense of self. She knows how to claim her narrative even when the world is trying to write it for her. But yeah, now that we talked about her sun sign, we have to get a little bit more personal with her. Um, we want to share that something special about her sun that makes it a little bit more wild and untamed is the asteroid Lilith. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so when you open your astrology chart, there's 2 points of Lilith. One of them is a mathematically calculated point of the darkest part of the moon's path, but that's not what we're talking about. I just wanted to let you know that there are two. The one that we're going to talk about is an asteroid. It's called Lilith, and it makes you more bold and untamed. So in astrology, when one of your placements, like your sun, your moon, your Mars, or whatever, is connected to another celestial body, that means that they're sitting really close together in the sky, and it's almost like they're fused and their energies connect and become one. So Taylor has asteroid Lilith connected to her sun. Since her sun is what represents her essence, her life force, and her sense of self, anything conjunct that is going to become part of it too. And she has asteroid Lilith conjunct her sun, which makes it kind of infuses the consciousness of Lilith in her ego. So asteroid Lilith, if you want to look it up, Virgos, it is 1181, asteroid number 1181. It's a small real object in the asteroid belt that astrologers will use to tap into themes of independence and power and feminine strength. So if you look back into mythology, Lilith was considered to be the first woman ever. Before Eve, she was created alongside of Adam, not from his rib like Eve, but she was made from the same earth, making her his equal. And there came a point in their life together where Adam was like trying to dominate her and tell her what to do. And she was like, no, I'm not doing this. And she bounced. She chose exile, just like Taylor does. She left that Garden of Eden. She was refusing to compromise her sense of self and report to Adam, make Adam her boss instead of being his equal. She's like, I'm out of this. So in astrology, the asteroid Lilith carries that same fierce energy. She will show you where in your life you refuse to be controlled, you refuse to be submissive, and you refuse to be tamed. It's where you value your own personal freedom, how you assert yourself, and when others expect you to play a smaller role than what you really are. So her placement in your chart will really reveal this raw side of you that's instinctive and that doesn't conform easily, especially when it comes to gender roles. Like, how can you go against the patriarchy, whether it's like sexuality or creativity or authority? The Lilith shows where in your energy you're not afraid to walk away from even something comforting because it's about staying true to yourself.
Asteroid Lilith, so powerful. And Taylor Swift having Lilith in the same position as her sun, which is a conjunction, it really gives her bright Sagittarius performer side a Lilith twist. And so let's talk about how that's played out in her life and career. So she has been punished for her power. Number one, Taylor has been mocked for having multiple relationships and turning them into songs, which is a pattern that mirrors the Lilith archetype, which is, that powerful, expressive women are often shamed for owning their desires and speaking their truth. I mean, do we remember the 1989 era? Anyone? She had to do a whole era about girl code, basically, and girl power because she had been getting so much criticism from everyone saying that all she talked about was men and the relationships that she has. And so instead of shrinking, she turned that criticism into a superpower. Anybody remember the Bad Blood music video from 1989? She's like all of the powerful women as like superheroes and made her love life a source of creative fuel and global connection. And, she's been criticized simply for being strategic, successful, and outspoken about her worth when she was negotiating her contracts and calling out industry inequality and taking ownership of her masters. Her drive has often been labeled as calculating or manipulative, which is a judgment that powerful women often face when they dare to lead with clarity and confidence. But like Lilith, she never backed down. She just got louder, smarter, and more unstoppable. So that's just an amazing way to describe having Lilith conjunct her sun. And then also, she has fierce individuality. Her core identity resists being boxed in. Like we talked about how she travels through genres, she is not going to be boxed in. She claims her voice, her image, and her artistry with unapologetic confidence, refusing to be controlled or defined by anyone else. And she's never followed industry expectations. She shapeshifts across the genres and eras and aesthetics without asking permission. She had kind of abandoned her country roots for synth pop and released indie albums in quarantine just a few months after each other, something no one had done in the industry. And her identity is really self-defined. Every transformation reflects her refusal to be pinned down. And she has been exiled and then also exalted. Like Lilith in the myth, Taylor has been misunderstood, shamed, and cast out by public opinion, only to rise again stronger and sharper and in full control of her narrative. And that is just so beautiful. I'm thinking of My Tears Ricochet as a song being a good example of that whole vibe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was such a good explanation of Lilith in your chart, especially when it's conjunct your sun. When she shines, when she rebels. It's like she has this shadow feminine reclamation. Her music boldly explores the emotions that are often labeled as too much for women. And I'm told that all the time, and I'm too much, so I get it. Like rage and lust and revenge and defiance. She has this ability to transform art into something that's like both raw and empowering. And what I'm thinking about is from Reputation, of course. Look at What You Made Me Do, because that's a full reclamation of rage and revenge. She's channeling all that public vilification that she went through, refusing to be the good girl. And even the song from 1989, Blank Space, which, oh my God, that's my favorite song.
It's also Travis's favorite song.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah, Travis loves Blank
Okay.
Space. He's a Blank Space stan. So great.
He's definitely a blank space. I'll say that. So it's like a tongue-in-cheek embrace of the crazy ex-girlfriend archetype when she just owns it. Like she's a crazy ex-girlfriend, and she uses satire and like style to reclaim the narrative around women being emotional or unpredictable. And also from Folklore, that song Mad Woman. It's like a haunting and mature expression of female range and even gaslighting. Like when she sings, "Every time you call me crazy, I get more crazy. What about that?" And that's a direct challenge to the cultural discomfort of angry women. And then, isn't there a song from your favorite album? What song
Yes,
was that?
Tortured Poets. I don't think there's a more literal representation of it than in the Eras tour when she's on that mirrored platform and she's zooming through the stage. Who's afraid of little old me? That song is like a guttural scream of a song. It's so Lilith embodied. It represents the female rage of being a beloved pop star to millions, while also embodying an influence that is feared by the industry and even people that get close to her personally. And so I just love these songs, how they really represent that unique archetype of Lilith conjunct her sun in the chart.
Yeah, and also like it gives her this wildness to her creativity. Like her music has a lot of myth, it has a lot of meaning and a lot of emotional truths. So it could be through storytelling. She has like a lot of symbolism in her music or sonic shifts where she makes bold statements and she's not going to be the person to play it safe. And also when she wrote those two albums, Evermore and Folklore, she did it in private. It was like a secret at the height of the pandemic, when no one expected a surprise indie folk pivot. There she was, and she did it. She left the pop machine to write mystical, character-driven stories with these emotional shadows. She really owned the witch and the villain archetype, particularly in Reputation, where she leaned into being misunderstood and demonized, embracing like the imagery of snakes. Like when that album came out, I put snakes all over my Facebook, like I'm crazy like that, witches and the Mad Woman. So Lilith was the first woman cast out for refusing submission, and Taylor claimed that same exile, only she turned it into a power with her Sagittarius Sun.
So intense. Lilith is a very intense placement in your chart. If everybody who's listening, look up where you have Lilith in your chart, and wherever it is, those themes of that sign are where you have female rage. And that is just really cool, like seeing how Taylor has such a strong conjunction in her chart that represents that archetype. Moving on to her moon in Cancer, this is a fun placement. I mean, I don't think Cancer moons would say it's fun, because Cancer moons are like, I feel all the time. It's so deep, but it's very fun to have a pop star who's got the bright light of Sagittarius and then also their moon in Cancer, the deep emotional feelings of Cancer that blend.
Yeah, so maybe we should first quickly refresh some of our listeners on what the moon sign is. So your moon sign is your emotional core, like how you are deep down, like what do you need to really be happy in life? Like how do you feel when you nurture? How do you want to be nurtured? And how do you instinctively respond when no one's watching, when you're alone in your bedroom? Like how are you? That's your moon sign. It's like your private world and your safe space. So you said Taylor's moon is in Cancer, and literally out of all 12 signs, I would say that one is the most emotionally rich sign of the zodiac. If you go back and listen to our summer episode, we really go deep into Cancer energy. So if you listen to that, you can really envision who Taylor is deep down, like that protective shell, and really feeling everything and holding all of her memories really deep to her. This placement reveals the soft heart beneath her stardom, and it shows up everything from her songwriting to her love of tradition and the way she almost shields her personal life. Because, like we said, Cancer has a hard shell to protect this amazing emotional world. And Taylor can be a little private about her personal world. And also, Cancer moons are really, really intuitive, a bit more psychic. They have a really good memory. Their memories rule them, and they feel everything deep down to the bone. And we could see that all of her lyrics have like the most clear memories ever. Like from the song All Too Well, she brings, like, she talks about a scarf and like the autumn chill and the heartbreak. All of those memories from that time of her life are put into a song. And only a Cancer moon can really hold onto a memory of a scarf for over a full decade and turn that memory into a lyrical masterpiece of art. And that song is pure emotional memory, nostalgia, and poetic storytelling. So it's really gold. Cancer moon gold.
Oh, yes. Like so many of her songs are really like dreamscapes, and you can really see the image in your mind. Like Back to December is like you can just see the dark nights and the snow falling, and All Too Well, like you feel the crisp air and that you feel the warmth of that scarf on you. And then going to Cruel Summer, it's like you feel the heat of the moments, like the summer romance moments. If you listened to the summer edition, we talked a lot about how summer romance is really connected to the Cancer season. And what does Taylor do best? She talks about romance and the fleeting memories that stick with you forever, even though they happened in like the blink of an eye. The placement of a Cancer moon really gives her, like you're saying, that incredible emotional memory. The stories in her songs feel like keepsakes, and she's revisiting old heartbreaks and friendships through vivid lyrics years later. She processes her feelings through words, pouring them into diary-like lyrics that somehow feel exactly like what you're going through too. I think a really compelling image for Cancer moon is literally a diary that's locked that no one can see. I would kill to see Taylor's journals and diaries that she hasn't shared with everyone. Like, I'm sure there's so much material. I actually think she might even be publishing poetry like under a pen name. Like I'm a conspiracy theorist in that way. I'm like, maybe Taylor has already published poetry and we just don't even know because she's doing it under a pen name. That's feels so Cancer moon to me. I
want to investigate this.
That might actually be real. And that actually was a theory online for a while. So you should definitely look into that if you want to go down a rabbit hole. But her obsession with emotional detail is just amazing. She doesn't just tell you what was said, she tells you where and when and what sweater she was wearing. Songs like The Moment I Knew and Sad, Beautiful, Tragic, and even Clean shows how Cancer moons remember love and loss through sensory snapshots. And she revisits old themes and people in new songs. Like the whole album Midnights is literally described as her going through all the eras and writing songs about the sleepless nights across her whole life. And so there's a ton of callbacks to Red in Midnights and just Easter eggs across albums. And that deep connection to the past is textbook Cancer moon. And also her Cancer moon is deeply tying her to home and family and emotional safety. Like, we got to talk about her relationship with her mom, Andrea. Like, that's so Cancer moon. Taylor's bond with her mom is so strong and loving and always highlighted in her life. She even wrote The Best Day and Soon You'll Get Better about her mom. And Cancer moons often have deep ties to their family, especially maternal figures. Like even Marjorie on Evermore is a tribute to her late grandmother. And this song is layered with memory and ancestral ties and emotional wisdom. Like the fact that she even included that in the Eras tour. Marjorie is not a banger song. I mean, it's a great song. It's not necessarily a banger. And what's really beautiful is that one of the fan things that happened very early in the Eras tour is that everyone held up the light on their phone as kind of like a candle, like that they were lighting for lost loved ones. And a lot of people, when that song came in the Eras tour, like for me in particular, I have a friend named Lily that I was a Swiftie holic with. We love talking about all things Taylor Swift, and she sadly passed away last year. And when I went to the Indianapolis Eras tour, I was sobbing during Marjorie because I had my phone held up, and it just reminded me of that loss in my life. And the lyric, "What died didn't stay dead," is a very Cancer moon lyric, and the feelings live on. And that was just a beautiful thing that I think Taylor's Cancer moon really brought to the epic Eras tour, like having a container for grief within the middle of this whole pop extravaganza. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I really feel how you set that tone so well. I was able to put myself at the concert and like feel your feelings, and that was a beautiful tribute to Lily.
Love her so much. Lily's the best. It's actually about the 2-year anniversary of us going to shows in the same month. And I had that memory pop up on my phone today. So little spirit wink from Lily today,
Lily.
coming through. But also, like, we have to talk about how her creating Folklore and Evermore was so Cancer, like you were saying. She did that in isolation in 2020. She retreated into this quiet, introspective space and wrote these albums that feel like cozy, emotional campfires, because Cancer moons need safe, soulful places to process feelings. And that's exactly what those albums were.
Yeah, that totally talks about her Cancer moon. And also, I want to bring up one more time that she's famously private about her personal life, which is a strong Cancer moon behavior because it's symbolized by the crab. So it's got that soft insides, but that hard protective shell. And, while many celebrities like are all over Instagram posting like every little thing about their life, like Taylor went years without sharing anything from her day-to-day life. Even now, her social media, it's mostly promotional, like albums, recordings, and content from her tours. There's nothing personal, like she's not taking all these selfies with her boyfriend. She's really keeping that inner world of hers and her romantic relationships while they're happening sacred. And she lets you feel with her, but at the same time, she's not giving anything away. And that emotional boundary is super wise because it's like a sort of self-protection that allows her to be totally honest, but also at the same time, she's not totally exposed. And when she does interviews, she very rarely discusses her personal life with like her family unless it's carefully chosen, like her mom's health journey or writing songs about heartbreaks. Like that's more thought out, but she's not going to spill all the tea on like Instagram Live. She controls the narrative with her intentions and her boundaries. And another thing that she does, which is so Cancer moon, is when she re-recorded all of her old albums. There's also the Lilith, like reclaiming what's hers and stepping out of her comfort to redo it all. But also a Cancer moon really will reclaim their emotional history and preserve the past and honor all of the original versions of herself. So it's deeply sentimental and it's protective, like a mother going back to rescue her younger self, which is so sweet. And even though she's had so many public heartbreaks, all these media storms, or even career setbacks, Taylor bounces back. And Cancer moons are resilient. Once they fully process their feelings, they will emerge stronger and self-assured. And that comeback energy is part of her emotional rhythm to reflect, retreat, and rise again.
Yes, she's so resilient. That's such a Cancer moon trait. And her Cancer moon also shows the way she builds emotional connection with her fans. Like the fact that we're even doing a podcast about Taylor Swift right now is partially because she has a Cancer moon, because her music really feels like a heart to heart. She really writes in a way that makes people feel seen and understood and safe. And Cancer moons are natural nurturers, and she creates an emotional sanctuary for her listeners. And something that came to mind when I was thinking about this was Last Kiss. That song is a heartbreaking song that every person who's gone through a breakup can relate to. Like, never thought we'd have a last kiss. So Cancer moon and in the feels of her to do. And just every girl can relate. Every person, not just every girl. We're not gendering feelings. Every person can relate to never thought we'd have a last kiss. And so next time you hear one of her songs that hits a little too close to home, remember it's probably her Cancer moon speaking straight to your heart. And even though, like, I don't know Taylor personally, due to her Cancer moon, I know that if I was part of her most inner circle, it would really feel like a warm cup of tea speaking with her, so cozy and inviting. And I think we do see that when even she has like gatherings, like she always throws a 4th of July party that literally falls during Cancer season. She goes to dinner with her friends a lot. She really loves her inner circle deep, and that is a huge Cancer moon thing about her.
Maybe we'll be invited to our party next year, her 4th of July party.
Oh, please, Taylor. Please invite us. We would be really good house guests. We're fun. We're Sagittariuses. We'll be fun.
Yeah. We'll vibe so well, and we'll keep all of your personal stuff private.
Yes, we will. Don't you worry. We got you, Taylor. All right. Well, now that we talked about Cancer moon in Taylor's chart, let's talk about the exact opposite of that, which is her Mercury in Capricorn. Capricorn is the polar sign to Cancer, so it's completely different energy than everything we just talked about. And let's kind of refresh your memory on what a Mercury placement is in the chart. So Mercury is like your personal voice filter. It's how you think and speak and make sense of the world. And it shapes everything from how fast your brain fires to the way you explain your wild ideas or obsess over the tiny details. And Mercury even colors the tone of your voice. And it's also your sense of humor and, yeah, your texting style too. And so you can kind of just think of Mercury as like your communication vibe. And wherever it is in your chart gives insight into how your mind works and what kind of conversations light you up. So if you have ever wondered why you can't stop overthinking, or you love to debate or narrate your life in your head like it's a movie, chances are it's because of your Mercury placement just being in full effect. And so Taylor has her Mercury in Capricorn. And Ashlee, can you talk about what that means for her?
Yeah, so when she was born, Mercury was traveling through the constellation of Capricorn, which makes her thinking, her speaking, and her processing all Capricorn-like. And when your Mercury's in Capricorn, it's the total opposite of Cancer, like we just talked about. So her communication style, instead of it being emotional and nostalgic, instead it's more grounded, future-focused, structured, and goal-oriented. So people who have their Mercury in Capricorn, they usually prefer more practical and clear language over the fluff. And they come across as like really smart and way more wise, like beyond their years. And they're more likely to think before they talk. Like they're not just going to run into a room or text you and just word bomb you. What they're going to say is thought out and more practical, and it carries some weight. So Taylor having her Mercury in Capricorn, it shows that she has a great mind for long-term planning. Like she's a disciplined thinker, she's disciplined at learning, and she's really good at problem solving through her head in real world situations. So she has like this talent of organizing all of her poetic thoughts and turning them into solid results. And there are times when like a Capricorn can come off as reserved or overly cautious, especially in more emotional conversations. But since Capricorn leans more towards logic than sentiment, that's just how they're built. But just because a Capricorn comes across as serious does not mean there's no emotions there. It is there. It's just a really calm exterior that values really meaningful and practical dialogue and taking commitment seriously and words seriously. And they use their words to build something lasting. And what I was thinking when I was saying all of this is Taylor's sun is in Sagittarius. So it's ruled by Jupiter, which is big, big thoughts. Let's think about all like how great everything could be. Let's be silly. Let's joke. But then her brain is totally different. her brain is operated by Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn, that likes to limit things and make things smaller and more work to get it. So there is like a little bit of a clash in what you're seeing in her bright Lilith side versus her mind being more structured. So when you see her rebel, it clashes with how she's thinking, and she might get a little anxiety about it in times thinking about it, but at the same time she uses it to plan what you're going to see. So I thought that was really cool.
Yes, absolutely. Because like what you just said, that is really pointing out how she's so strategic with her songwriting, like building the narratives with long-term vision. Like think about how she does all the Easter eggs. And she has that interview she did with Jimmy Fallon where she said, "Can I hint about something 3 years in advance?" And a
Whoa.
Capricorn Mercury can hint at something 3 years in advance. That's just part of their nature. That's what they do. And how she announced reputation by wiping her whole social media, like that's classic Mercury and Capricorn. It's calculated and it's planned, and she has a bigger picture in mind. And if you look at her social media, we referenced it earlier, she even though she's a Cancer moon and loves her emotions and everything, and she's a fiery Sagittarius, the way she communicates with everyone is very controlled. People will even notice on her grid, everything is lined up perfectly. And she also has Easter eggs in her captions. Like during the Eras tour, she would have like emojis and word choices and a certain number of exclamation points that were actually Easter eggs for future things that she was going to do. And so that's Mercury and Capricorn in action right there. And she also has a really like cool and controlled tone when she actually speaks. Like when you watch her do interviews, her speaking style is measured and clear and sometimes a little bit formal, which really reflects Capricorn's influence because it's influencing her how she speaks. And even in interviews or acceptance speeches, like she rarely rambles or loses composure. I wish I could be like that. I have a Mercury in Sagittarius, but when you have a Mercury in Capricorn, there's a strong sense of knowing exactly what to say and when. And Ashlee, like we can't forget what happened after the media backlash in 2016. She went silent for over a year, basically.
That is Capricorn. You know, that was killing her because her sun wants to just be bigger and bigger, but the Capricorn side is like, no, I'm going to limit that and I'm going to wait it out and make everyone wait for my next move.
Yes. And like when your brain is influenced by Capricorn, you don't react too impulsively. You're more patient and you can wait until the message can be delivered with impact. And I think we'll talk about this in the next episode when we talk about important transits in her life. But with the Masters announcement of her buying it all back, you know that she was working on that deal behind the scenes for, I'm sure, a long time. And she was, again, her Sagittarius side was probably so excited about it and maybe, feeling like she wanted to move forward and tell everyone. But her Capricorn brain was like, no, you need to announce this when it's fully done, when the business is done, because Mercury in Capricorn gives your communication style a strategic and business savvy edge. Like she's not going to speak too emotionally. She's speaking with intention and structure and long-term vision. And when she addresses her fans or the media or major corporations, she chooses her words carefully and communicates with authority. Like even in the Eras tour, when she would do her acoustic section and she would speak to the audience before, she would have these speeches that she would do, and you can tell she definitely thought about it before she talked. She wasn't just going flying by the seat of her pants. She had definitely considered it. And even towards the end of the Eras tour, she had less and less speeches because she really controlled how she communicated. She said, I don't even need to make a little speech. Like my songs that I'm going to sing during the acoustic set are going to give you the message that I want you to receive. And so I think that really is very Mercury and Capricorn vibes. And also we're going to talk about these transits in the next episode, but the Scooter Braun situation, like she released really clear, articulate statements about the sale of her masters. And she had a calm but firm tone while she was outlining her position and her long-term plans, which ultimately led to her re-recording project, which is total Capricorn clarity and control. And also the open letter to Apple Music when she wrote a respectful, direct letter to Apple to compensate artists during trial periods. They actually reversed their policy within 24 hours, which is a powerful example of Mercury communicating with logic and professionalism and results.
So Capricorn. And we're definitely, like you said, we're going to go a lot more into this in the next episode. But let's just go over a few things that are so Mercury and Capricorn, brain ruled by Capricorn, her public essays and album prologues. So she pretty much often writes these detailed writings in her album booklets that clearly lays out the themes and intentions behind her work. And it really reflects her Mercury and Capricorn because they have a need to contextualize creative output with meaning and structure. And then we spoke about her calculated social media use, how she's not impulsive or even really casual online, like when she disappeared during the Reputation era or dropping Easter eggs in her posts. Her communication is always timed, intentional, and part of a larger strategy. And even her acceptance speeches are so Capricorn. Like when you win an award and you're on stage, like it's so emotional, but nope. Taylor will get up there. She'll be solid and maybe even a little stoic. And she frames her thank you speeches with like wisdom and composure. She uses that platform also to make thoughtful points about ownership, work ethic, and legacy, which is very Mercury and Capricorn.
And Ashlee, she even announced tortured poets at an awards show in her speech. That's how Mercury and Capricorn she is she's even able to do something so businesslike, like literally announcing an album that's going to come out in a speech. So very Mercury and Capricorn.
You're so right, because like when you work on an album, like you're not just working on it for a few days, a few weeks. It's like this long-term project. And when it's complete and you know it's going to launch, like all you want to do is get on social media, go on Instagram Live and be like, guess what, everybody? I have an album coming out. But when your brain is ruled by Capricorn, that means the planet Saturn, the planet that's, let's wait, is taking over. She can really like wait. Like my Mercury is in Scorpio, so when I do something cool, all I want to do is like cry about it to everybody and talk about it to everybody. I have no control that way, but she'll sit there and wait. And when she won that award, instead of going up there crying and thanking God and thanking her mom, she's like, now here, my next album is coming, which is so cool. So her lyrics show a maturity also beyond her years. And I'm thinking about the songs like The Archer, which is also kind of Sagittarius, The Archer, or You're on Your Own, Kid. They have this serious and reflective tone because Mercury and Capricorn, they do have emotions, but they process them a little bit more structured, and they could turn these private thoughts into polished songwriting. And that's definitely her Capricorn, like from Fearless, You're Not Sorry, All This Time I Was Wasting, Hoping You Would Come Around, but not this time around. You don't have to call anymore. I won't pick up the phone. And you could tell me that you're sorry, but I don't believe you, baby, like I did before.
Yes, you're not sorry. No, 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 no. And like that song is about how you pissed someone off with a Cancer moon and a Capricorn Mercury. You wasted her time and she's bluntly calling you out. You're not sorry.
Love it. My Scorpio Mercury would show up at their window screaming, but she can make it into like this perfect song. Oh, what about that The Last Great American Dynasty, where I had a marvelous time ruining everything?
Oh, yes, that is like such a dry Capricorn style humor in that line. I had a marvelous time ruining everything. It's rebellious, but in a clever, self-aware way. And Mercury in Capricorn often communicates through irony or deadpan tone, and especially through pushing against traditional expectations. And then at the end of that song, when she says, "And then it was bought by me," like perfect Capricorn way to end that. But also, isn't there a song off of Lover that you were thinking about for this too?
I'm so sick of running as fast as I can, wondering if I'll get there quicker if I was a man. The man. That's there she's using Mercury's voice, like her Mercury and Capricorn's voice, to really address power and ambition and structure, which are all Capricorn themes. It's a clear and direct critique of systematic hurdles that she's faced and framed with professional and social awareness.
Yes. And then also, I love the line, I bury hatchets, but I keep maps of where I put them. And also the song like Invisible String, like those songs are both so witty and sharp, and they're also emotionally restrained because Mercury in Capricorn has a long memory and doesn't easily forget past wounds, even if forgiveness happens. And it really reflects a mental filing system where everything is accounted for, even the buried plan. And I believe there's a song, what song is it? It's the one with Haim, where it's like a murder plan. Oh my gosh, I can't think of the name of the song, but yeah, it's like basically so Mercury and Capricorn to have a mental filing system and execute it like that. So I love these examples of her Mercury and Capricorn at work.
Yeah, so we also could see Taylor as a real life example of having your sun in Sagittarius. So you see her wild, silly side, but you could tell that she's planning it, which is her Mercury and Capricorn. And then what about her Venus? Her Venus, how she's showing love and beauty. Let's talk about that.
Oh, yes. So something that's fun about her chart is she has placements in different signs, and it just really shows the unique blend of how these different zodiac signs can work together in a birth chart. And she has her Venus in Aquarius. And so talking about Venus is where in your chart, it's like your personal love language written in the stars. It's kind of shows how you flirt and what kind of beauty you're drawn to and what makes your heart skip a beat. And Venus is all about pleasure, attraction, and connection. Shows how you give and receive love and the kind of relationships that you crave, even in your taste in art and fashion and aesthetics. And you can think of it as the planet that adds charm and romance and sparkle to your personality. So it's like whether you follow head over heels fast or you play it cool and mysterious, Venus really reveals your vibe in love and the little luxuries that make life feel sweet. So Ashlee, what does Venus in Aquarius look like?
Yeah, so when your Venus is in Aquarius, it is so Cancer. It is like nothing to do with Cancer because it's anything but typical when it comes to love and beauty. So when Venus is in Aquarius, you value freedom and individuality and like the brains, the intellectual communication before everything. When your Venus is in Aquarius, instead of being emotional about love, you're more in love with like the mind and the ideas and uniqueness. It's like the cool girl, like I'm kind of detached, like it's like not clingy. When a moon in Cancer can be clingy, like they're not going to be devoted. Her Venus at the same time is like, I need my freedom. I'm not drawn to traditional things just for the sake of it. Instead, they crave partnerships that feel really fresh and future forward and very authentic emotionally, but without also at the same time being overly possessive. And their style is often experimental or trend setting. Like they like things that are quirky, a little rebellious, and they also like to love on their own terms. They're not just going to love because they feel like they have to. Like it has to be what they want when they want it. And they also shine the most in relationships when they could be fully themselves. So I'm just thinking about how Venus in Aquarius will just clash so much with her emotions. And that gives Taylor a bit of an edge when you have placements in your chart that kind of clash with each other. It's really cool how she feels everything so deeply, but when she's actually in the relationship, she's like, whatevs, like whatever. But then later on, so when it's funny because when she's in this relationship, the guys probably or whoever she's dating is going to think, wow, she's really a cool girl. Like she's not clingy. She's just wants to be herself, which is cool. But then they break up and all of a sudden the ex is going to see all these emotions that were really there that they might not have sensed during the relationship. So I thought that would be kind of cool to point out.
Totally. And also with Venus in Aquarius, it's like she values friendship in love. And she often talks about needing to be best friends with someone before she can fall in love. Like that's very Venus in Aquarius. I have my moon in Aquarius, so I relate to this. Really, Venus in Aquarius prioritizes the mental and emotional connection of a relationship And we can't forget about her Girl Squad era, which peaked around 2014 to 2016 during the 1989 album cycle. That was a cultural moment where she surrounded herself with a highly visible group of influential female friends. And this included models like Carly Kloss and Gigi Hadid, and musicians like Lorde and Selena Gomez, and actresses like Blake Lively. And this group would be in music videos like Bad Blood, on the red carpet with her. She went to a red carpet on the arm of Selena during this era. And in her social media posts, like we mentioned, the 4th of July parties, like she would post pictures of her group of friends enjoying 4th of July. And that's so Venus and Aquarius to value the girl squad and the friendships. On the surface, it was about celebrating female friendship and solidarity, but also this drew criticism for feeling kind of like exclusive and overly curated and lacking diversity. But at the core, it really reflected her Venus and Aquarius trait, which is valuing friendship for love. And it was about building a chosen family of strong and successful women, making sisterhood feel aspirational. There's really nothing more Venus and Aquarius than chosen family, I feel. And Aquarius Venus also doesn't always express love in traditional romantic terms. Instead, it thrives in connection through shared ideals and mutual respect and loyalty and community. And that makes me think of when she was with Joe Alwyn. It's almost like he didn't really want to be part of her community as a boyfriend. Like he probably really connected to her Cancer moon, like the emotions underneath the shell. But Taylor wanted to love with her friends, and she couldn't really be that version of herself when she was with him. And so I think that probably played a role in why they weren't long-term destined to be together forever. He didn't really lean into that community aspect of her Venus and Aquarius. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Totally. And what about her relationship? How she keeps them like really private. Because Aquarius energy, they don't like to be boxed in. So her Venus in Aquarius will definitely speak to why she has such boundaries behind her public persona and her personal life. Like her relationship with Joe Alwyn, they kept their 6-year relationship so private and they never really appeared in public together. And she never really shared details in her interviews. So her Venus in Aquarius, they do value that emotional connection, but they also need that shell, which Joe did give her. And then her relationship with Travis Kelce, which is still going on now. I think this relationship definitely reflects her Aquarius Venus, because Taylor did reveal this relationship on her own terms through like when she shouted it out during concerts and maybe an affectionate moment during his games and the public support. So it's open, but it's also at the same time not performative. Like she's not sharing pictures of her making out with him on Instagram saying my bae forever. Like that's not happening, because a Venus and Aquarius can embrace love publicly if this relationship respects her independence.
I also think that I think that Travis and Taylor have a more of a chance of going the distance because he really fits well into her friend group. Like, and also they met through mutual friends. Like her dancer Cam played on the Kansas City Chiefs with the brother of Cam. I forget his name, but like those guys, like the Saunders brothers, basically vouched for Travis to Taylor and was like, no, I actually know him like as a friend and he's a good guy. And so I do think that the friendship aspect like plays into it more as far as longevity. Not only does Travis get to be her own individual self in the relationship, but she also gets to bring in her friend groups and feel like everyone's connected through that kind of invisible string in her relationships.
Makes total sense. So I'm wondering for listeners, if anyone has Venus in Aquarius, if they met their partner or someone that they love in relationships through friends and how that worked out for them.
Yes, let us know in the comments. Please tell us. And then she also, like, when she writes about love, she doesn't name names, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Like people are always speculating who her songs are about, but she never actually says who they're about. And I think that is very Venus and Aquarius of her, like having that boundary setting of keeping some of the details private, but also hinting at what is actually happening with her lyrics. Like, she has a lot of control over what she shares.
Yeah, and it comes from like a detached, the classic Venus and Aquarius. They're a little detached. Like they don't need to show everything in everyone's faces. They're just kind of like, yeah, I'm too cool to do that. So I'm just gonna tell you how I felt and what happened, but you don't need to know who it was about. Like that's not important, which is so cool. And after intense media scrutiny in her relationships, she really did shift a little bit. Like she rarely will confirm her partners outright now, and she only reveals what she wants to. Like, even with Travis, she hasn't done any major interviews about her relationship because Venus and Aquarius, they love to be a little bit out of reach. And also with Venus and Aquarius, you are not really afraid to speak out politically. Like, you'll say it because Venus and Aquarius is progressive and cares a lot about justice. And Taylor's more recent activism reflects a love for humanity and collective freedom, when the sign of Aquarius is all about the collective, how everything is. And also, I also noticed in her songs that she explores love from a distance. Many of her songs touch on long distance love or secret love or love that feels a little far away. And when your Venus is in Aquarius, you're more likely to feel comfortable with it. And I'm thinking about the song from Red, All Too Well. While it's like a deeply emotional song, it also explores how memory and distance can color love over time, because a Venus in Aquarius can process heartbreak through analysis, storytelling, and space.
Yes, it's all about analyzing those feelings when you're talking about Aquarius and Venus in Aquarius, especially. And another great example of that is the song Invisible String from Folklore. It's really a great example of the subtle, faded love experience over time and distance. Like, there's really no clinginess there. It's just a calm, patient knowing that love unfolds when and how it's meant to. And I think that's really exemplifies that Venus in Aquarius. And then also Cruel Summer. That song is like intense. It's about a secret, intense love that can't be shared openly. And Aquarius Venus doesn't mind breaking a few rules or loving on the outskirts of convention. And that Cruel Summer really exemplifies that.
Yeah, so funny because I just listened to that album getting ready for this podcast, and
Yes.
Daylight, the song Daylight, it reflects on past love on a series of shadows and illusions, then turns towards a lighter and more emotionally mature kind of love. So there's like a cool clarity going on with that song and the decision to love differently. It's less all consuming and more self aware, which is so Aquarius.
That's such an interesting Venus placement for her to have, and especially in combination with that Sagittarius Sun and Cancer Moon and Mercury and Capricorn. Like, let's talk about another completely different sign that she has her Mars in. So Taylor has her Mars in Scorpio.
Sexy.
And yes, we kind of talked about Scorpio a little bit earlier when we talked about one of her possible rising signs. And so your Mars placement, just as a little refresher, is kind of like your personal fire starter. It shows how you take action and how you go after what you want and express desire. And so you can think of Mars as like your inner warrior, your drive, and your fight. It's like your spark, the chase, the let's do this now energy in your chart. And, there's nothing sweet about Mars unless maybe your Mars is in Libra, but
Yeah, Mars doesn't like being in Libra because it makes you kind of too sweet and not assertive.
right. But wherever Mars shows up in your chart, it tells us how you pursue goals, how you express anger or frustration, your physical energy level, and yeah, also your sexual vibe and how you flirt or go after love with confidence. Like, if Venus is the art of attraction, Mars is the hunt. It's the ambition, passion, and the kind of energy that makes you get out of bed and make it happen. So when we talk about Mars in Scorpio, it's like, okay, Mars is like how you go after what you want. And Mars in Scorpio does it with serious focus and mystery. And someone who has this placement doesn't confront someone by being loud or aggressive and getting in people's faces. It's more of a secret agent vibe, and it's quiet, deep and totally intense. Mars in Scorpio doesn't exactly chase people and things. It's more of a lock in and plan in secret and make a move when the time is just right. And doesn't that sound like Taylor Swift, the way she just operates in her career, kind of underneath the surface in secret all the time?
Yeah, it's her slow burn and not acting at impulse. She watches and she waits and she strikes with precision, like the archer. When someone with this placement wants something or someone, they're going to go all in. It's no half-assing. And if you try and stop them, like, good luck, because they're built to rise from the ashes even stronger than before.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like talking about like what makes Mars in Scorpio so awesome, especially for a pop star like Taylor, it really gives you that laser focus. They can become completely obsessed with a goal and they won't stop until they get it. And then they also have really strong emotional drive because their passion comes from deep feelings. Like when they care, they really care. They're also mysterious and magnetic. Scorpio is has such a magnetism to it, and there's a quiet confidence that draws people in without trying. And so honestly, that rising sign of Scorpio as an option, I wonder if the only thing that really makes that seem plausible is the fact that she has Mars in Scorpio. She kind of already has that vibe in her chart, you know?
That makes total sense because if she was a Scorpio rising, that would mean that Scorpio is in her first house. And that would also mean that Mars is in her first house. And when you have Mars in your first house, you kind of give off like this warrior, I'm going to fight you vibe, like very easily, even if you don't mean to. Like I'm thinking about Brittany from VPR or The Valley. She has her Mars in the first house and like she will fight. And Taylor, I feel like she's a little bit more composed with that. Like I don't see her as Mars in the first house. If she was a Capricorn rising, her Mars would be away from her first house. So it would come out a little
Yeah.
bit later.
That makes so much sense. See, this is what's hopefully those of you that are listening, this is really how you can kind of work backwards to see if you don't have a confirmed birth time to figure out what it possibly could be. Because as we're talking about this, like Ashlee just said, it's like, I don't know that she has Mars in the first house in Scorpio. And that's why we are leaning towards that Capricorn rising for her.
I'm also thinking that her Capricorn, if she's a Capricorn rising, her Mars in Scorpio, it would be like around in the 11th house, more public or more friendship, like around there, 10th, 11th house, depending on how you're looking at the chart. And she uses her friends as inspiration, I'm sure, like surrounded with the squad. And if her Mars was in a more public spot, not part of her identity, but more about her relationship with the public or her relationship with friends, to me, that makes more sense.
Yeah, that totally makes more sense. I think we're starting to crack the code with
Maybe we should write a book confirming her time, even though like we don't know for sure. But
well, hey, you can take the planetary princesses said it here on this day that the evidence is pointing towards Capricorn rising. But
on
also
our planet, she's a Capricorn rising.
Yes, on our planet, that's what she is. And also, we got to talk more about how she demonstrates her Mars in Scorpio because we know for sure she has her Mars in Scorpio. So, one of the things about her is her amazing emotional control. And like one of the most underrated parts of Taylor Swift's power is how she rarely loses control in public. And no matter the drama or the backlash or the heartbreak, she keeps her composure. And that is really how Mars in Scorpio works. It gives her emotional strength that runs deep, and it doesn't make her cold at all. It just shows that she knows exactly when to show vulnerability and when to keep it locked down because Mars in Scorpio is private and strategic and composed under pressure. It doesn't panic, overshare, or react without purpose. The archetype for Scorpio is the scorpion, and they have their stinger, and they only strike when they know they can deliver the maximum poison. so that's Taylor. You know, she's faced public breakups and betrayal and media takedowns and career setbacks, but you almost never see her break. Instead, she disappears, gets to work, and then reemerges more powerful than before, ready to strike.
Okay, I'm gonna be thinking about that scorpion now for so long. We only sting when the stinger is gonna really hurt. That is hilarious.
Yes. Gotta love those scorpions. I'm very connected to them in the desert here.
Yeah, my Scorpio brain just is, I'm loving this. What I love about Taylor's Mars is that she really owns that villain narrative. Because let's face it, like most people, definitely me, but a lot of people, we're all a villain in somebody's story. Like I've upset people in the past, I've come off as the crazy ex in the past. And there's a part of me that's like, oh no, I'm so sweet. You have to know the real me. But there's something really magnetic and sexy about just owning it. Like, yeah, I was the crazy ex. So what? And by the way, look at me now. Like, that is so Scorpio Mars, and I am loving it. And she claimed that snake imagery, like using those snake emojis, and she even turned it into her brand. And that's the Mars and Scorpio power, is turning your shadow into strength and embracing what others use to shame you. Like, who cares? Like, own it. And then
Totally.
there's also like, yeah, totally. And then there's also her creative obsessions, because Mars and Scorpio, they're not like casual people. When they feel passionate about something, they really dive in. And I feel like Taylor has really demonstrated that. Like, it's funny because her Venus is an Aquarius, so she can be more detached when it comes to approaching love, but her Mars in Scorpio will go all in. So that will definitely show up in her relationships. And her songwriting process, it's more than inspiring. In a way, it's like obsessive, but in such a good way, because when she's in the creative zone, she's fully submerged, writing dozens of songs, just pulling them out of anywhere. But like building narratives and shaping entire worlds.
Yes, she's so good at that. And it takes a lot of emotional endurance to write albums like she does. She did Folklore, Evermore, Midnights, and The Tortured Poets Department, which is a double album, all in under 4 years. And so many of those songs dig into grief and desire, anger, and inner conflict. And Mars and Scorpio really has the strength to go deep again and again without burning out. And she channels her pain into power in this way by thriving on transformation and taking this emotional pain and turning it into something impactful and even really beautiful. Scorpio is really like a private sign. And so she's writing in secret often and then dropping entire projects with little warning. And this ability to work quietly, intentionally, and intensely for a long period is total Scorpio Mars energy. She doesn't need external validation mid process. She waits until the work is complete and strategically releases it. And we can't forget about the quiet magnetism of Mars and Scorpio. It's deeply sexual, Mars and Scorpio, but it's not performative or flashy. Like, it's really about the power and the intimacy and the emotional seduction rather than physical exposure. I think the album cover of Tortured Poets is a really great example of Mars and Scorpio energy because she's like laying on the bed in her underwear, like underneath a sheet. But the way that she staged that image is more about emotionally seducing you than like showing a bunch of skin, even though it's like she's in her underwear on a bed. That's very Mars and Scorpio. She is like the slow burn, like with the Scorpio Mars energy. It's more of a mysterious feeling than Mars and Leo or Aries, which is more like open confidence and center stage sexuality. Mars and Scorpio really makes Taylor not your typical sex symbol. Like, she doesn't rely on overly provocative outfits, hypersexualized lyrics, but at the same time, you feel so intimately connected to her with her music, and also the longing and desire that she writes about in a way that feels really vulnerable and powerful. And Mars and Scorpio really is controlled vulnerability. Like, she can write about desire and lust and intimacy without putting her body on full display or reducing herself to an object. It's like her power comes through the juxtaposition of privacy. A Scorpio Mars kind of knows that mystery is magnetic. And so, like that Tortured Poets cover, the mystery of what's underneath the sheets is what draws you in rather than her boobs being on full display. And she's been criticized and mocked for her love life, but never for being too sexy. She really avoided being pigeonholed as a sex symbol, not because she lacks sexuality or magnetism, but because she wields it quietly and intentionally and doesn't allow the industry to define it for her.
I love that so much. And I think that also is why I love Taylor so much, because this is my old Gen X side coming out. Pop stars these days, their full boobs are out, their butt is out. Like, no hate to Sabrina Carpenter. I absolutely love her and her music. But like when you watch her perform, she's in lingerie. She's doing like sex positions on the stage and like riding things like a cowgirl. Like, she's really going for it. Like, her last album cover was her crawling, getting her hair pulled by a man, and you will never see Taylor doing that. But at the same point, she has no problem finding a relationship, and people do really enjoy being like, she's always has a boyfriend or a partner, and there's so many rumors about her. People are always thinking about her love life, but it's not because she's humping the microphone on stage. She's has something deep and mysterious, like laying under the sheets in her underwear. Like, she's not saying, look how sexy I am, or just imagine how sexy I can be, which is so Mars and Scorpio.
So true. And we get to talk about Scorpio again with Taylor because she also has Pluto in Scorpio. And Pluto is a really powerful planet. It's a planet that is really all about transformation and power and all the deep stuff we don't talk about at parties, and places like at work. Your Pluto represents your rebirths and your shadow work, control, obsession, and letting go of what no longer serves you. It's not cute, but it's powerful. And because Pluto moves very slowly, it can spend about 12 to 30 years in a single sign. And so it marks entire generations. So, for example, Pluto in Cancer was the silent generation. Pluto in Leo are boomers. Pluto in Virgo are Gen Xers. Pluto in Libra are Gen Xers and Zennials. And then Pluto in Scorpio are millennials. And continuing on, Pluto in Capricorn are Generation Alphas. Also, we skipped over Pluto in Sagittarius is Gen Z.
Gen Z.
So,
oh yeah.
Yeah. So Pluto really defines generations. So Taylor's not unique in having Pluto and Scorpio in the sense that a lot of people have Pluto and Scorpio, but having it in Scorpio, which she shares with all millennials, it means that people that were born with that energy with Pluto were born into a time of collective intensity, and they all carry the cosmic signature of deep transformation, emotional honesty, and a no BS approach to life. And they're not afraid of shadowy topics like death and sex and trauma and power because they live in them and work through them and talk about them more openly than any generation before. Like, there's that meme about Pluto and Scorpio millennials, and it's like, I would just love to grow up in precedented times. because millennials have never lived in precedented times. We've always had unprecedented things happening because it's all about transformation. And we also really took, I'm a millennial, I have Pluto and Scorpio. We took mental health out of the taboo zone, and therapy and trauma processing and inner child healing, which are all Scorpio Pluto themes, are really front and center now because millennials are embracing that, and it's seen as being part of the whole journey of being a functional human. And
Important.
I really think like Taylor's albums really exemplify transformation. Like, we talked about her going through genres and talking about all these transformations in her life, especially reputation, when she literally, part of her reputation died, and she has the line in her song, "Can the old Taylor come to the phone right now?" No, because she's dead. Like, there's nothing more Pluto and Scorpio than that line. And so Taylor really has shown these transformations by turning personal trauma into collective power, taking her personal experiences, betrayal, industry battles, and transforming them into anthems of empowerment, like songs like My Tears Ricochet and All Too Well and Who's Afraid of Little Old Me. Those all channel Pluto's themes of emotional death and rebirth. And her Scorpio Mars that we just talked about fuels her ability to dig into pain and alchemize it into poetry. because she doesn't run from grief. She builds empires with it.
Oh, love it. It's so powerful. And my Pluto is in Libra, so I'm Gen X. And one thing about my generation and generations before is we've had mental health problems too, just like people do today. But when we had them, it was very, very taboo to go to a therapist or go to a psychiatrist. And I remember when I first started getting signs of depression, little minor in high school or in my early 20s, when I was in my psychiatrist's office, like I would be in the waiting room, like in disguise almost. Like I'd want to wear sunglasses and a hat. I would have died on the spot if I ran into anyone I known seeing me in the waiting room for a doctor's appointment, for a mental health appointment. And what I love so much about millennials is collectively, depending on where their Pluto placement is in their chart, but collectively, they normalize this and they made it okay to talk about mental health. Like I'm thinking about the podcast of Call Her Daddy, where Alex Cooper literally talks about therapy and how important it is in every episode. And me, like, I really could have used that when I was younger, teens, 20s, 30s. Like, I really, really needed that. And I absolutely love so much how millennials broke that entire taboo of it. It was just
Totally.
so important. Yeah.
Yeah. And the cool thing about Taylor, too, is like she owns her narrative. Like, and that's so Pluto and Scorpio. When she lost the rights to her masters and she re recorded them, that is really exemplifying her Mars and Scorpio meeting her Pluto and Scorpio. It was a strategic long term plan to take back her power in a system that tried to erase her autonomy. And it was a huge transformation, Pluto, through resilience and revenge. Mars, like the Scorpio way. And she really like confronts the taboo emotions without flinching. Like she's never shied away from writing about jealousy, like Better Than Revenge, or lust in the song Dress, obsession, like in Illicit Affairs, or rage, like vigilante shit, or vengeance in Look What You Made Me Do. Like these are all Pluto and Scorpio themes to the core, and especially combined with her Mars, it's intense and raw and often deemed too much for women to express, but Taylor really leans in and reclaims it and says it anyway.
It's amazing. And as a Pluto and Libra, I just look at that in complete awe that she's saying all the things that I wanted to say growing up. And it makes me wonder how people who have their Pluto in Sagittarius, the Gen Zers, like to them, it's all normalized of going to therapy. Like they could be sitting in their classroom in school and being like, yeah, I got therapy later. It's normal. And it's thanks to the millennials like Taylor. Taylor has sparked a generational movement. Her work has reflected the times while shaping them, especially for a generation learning to transform pain into purpose and visibility into power.
She's so powerful, Taylor Swift.
She is.
This
Yes.
all explains why. And that's what's so fun about doing this chart analysis is you can really see how the planets and the archetypes make her who she is. And we've really only scratched the surface with her sun and her moon, Venus, Mars, and Pluto. There are more planets and degrees and angles and asteroids. And if we knew her birth time, for sure, that would be even crazier, because that would be knowing the houses exactly and everything. So Taylor's chart is really a universe of its own, and so is your chart. And I hope this inspires you listening to look at your individual placements and see how they really form the unique version of you. There's no bad placements in a chart. Some of these placements Taylor has are ones that you might see in pop astrology as being difficult or cold or too intense, but you can really see how altogether her chart is beautiful. It made her who she is. And it's just a wonderful cosmic story of her energy. And we didn't want to leave the episode without talking about a few other unique things about her chart. We talked a lot about Capricorn earlier with her Mercury in Capricorn, and Taylor has a stellium in Capricorn. And a stellium is what's basically, it means that you have 3 or more planets in one sign. And every astrologer is a little different of what they consider a stellium. Like for me, I consider your rising sign as part of a stellium. So let's say you had 2 planets in the sign and your rising, I would still call that a stellium. Other astrologers might not. It's a unique thing that is kind of defined based on your approach to astrology. But Taylor has her Mercury, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune all in Capricorn. So that's 4 planets. And if we had a confirmed birth time and it was the Capricorn one we talked about, she'd even have that as well. So that could even be a 5th thing, but we don't know for sure. So we can't for sure say that. But basically, all of these planets mean that she channels a lot of her energy through a Capricorn lens, which is grounded and disciplined and focused on long-term goals and reputation and legacy. And so with those planets all close together in Capricorn, her mind, Mercury, is grounded and visionary. She can think long-term, Saturn, but still surprise you with sudden creative pivots, Uranus, or emotionally resonant work, Neptune. And this really explains why Taylor thinks in eras, because Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, the planet associated with time and legacy and structure. And when you have your Mercury in that sign, it tends to operate like a historian, like an archivist, or even a CEO with a long range plan. And like for Taylor, this shows up in how she breaks her career into eras. Eras is such a Capricorn word. Like her albums are time capsules. Like 1989 was a declaration of rebirth and pop. And Reputation was the darker, more guarded phase. And Lover was a pastel tinted return to softness and just a really bubbly relief after years of defense. And now with the Tortured Poets Department, she's archiving her heartbreak in real time and framing her pain with literary depth. And like, isn't it just wild how meticulous she is?
Yeah, that's deep. Each era leaves behind a trail of symbolism that fans can decode for years. Her lyrics reference moments like diary entries or journal entries, but she layers them with metaphors and Easter eggs. They make you really want to like study them and analyze them. It's as if she's building a living anthology of her growth, both emotionally and artistically, and even spiritually. And I think this really speaks to Capricorn's signature long game thinking. Even her re-recordings of her early work, like Taylor's version, reflects her time-focused mindset. Time is a Capricorn thing. She's literally rewriting the narrative of her past. She's reclaiming it and she's preserving it in the format of her own choosing. Like someone who's restoring a historic building, she's honoring what it was, but then also at the same time, she's future-proofing it. And then her Neptune in Capricorn is all about turning dreams into reality. So Neptune is what makes things really kind of big and wonky. You could see things so big beyond this earth that maybe some things in reality might be a little difficult to see. So Neptune rules your fantasy, creativity, and idealism. So in Capricorn, these dreamy visions will actually get built. Instead of building onto your dreams, you can really build them into real life in this earthly world. So she brings them to life with structure and detail. And we could think of this in Folklore and in Evermore. I keep referencing these albums. They were fully realized story worlds. So each album came carefully planned with surprise drops, visuals, cozy aesthetics, and a full suite of merchandise. It all felt spontaneous, but at the same time, it was executed with Capricorn's precision.
Yes, and like her cardigans are very Capricorn planned out. Like I'm wearing her Lover cardigan. She has a cardigan for every era. She has it planned out. She releases them on a schedule. I'm sure there's so much logistics that goes into designing every one. And that's part of Neptune and Capricorn, is like turning a dreamy vision. When she first did the very first cardigan, she was probably like, wow, that'd be fun to do it for every era. And then girl,
Yeah.
she executed it. And also, we wanted to talk about one of her stronger aspects in her chart, which is Venus making a square to Pluto in Scorpio. So when a planet makes a square with another planet, it creates tension. And so Venus in Aquarius being square to Pluto in Scorpio, it really blends emotional intensity with a need for reinvention and independence. And it kind of makes love as into a paradox. Like she craves deep emotional intensity, Pluto and Scorpio, and personal freedom, Venus in Aquarius. So it creates this battle inside of her, like, I want to belong to no one, but also be completely consumed. Like, it's both. That's the thing about a square in the chart. You can have two energies that kind of clash. And so in her chart, it's like she's emotionally intellectual, Venus in Aquarius, but she's secretly possessive. So it's the Pluto and Scorpio brings jealousy and obsession and emotional power beneath the surface, but Venus in Aquarius keeps love cool and witty and observational. And so her lyrics are often like showing that duality, like emotionally detached, but also quietly devastated.
Yeah, and let's think of it also like this. Your Venus placement is how you attract and how you love and how you see beauty. And then her Mars is also in Scorpio. So her Mars is about how she grabs things and how she goes for it. So when you look at how she attracts love and how she goes for love, they completely crash with each other.
Yes.
Aquarius energy will tend to totally clash with Scorpio energy because they're both fixed signs. They're both in the middle of the seasons, but Aquarius is more detached, cool, like whatever. And Mars and Scorpio is like, I'm going to get this. I'm going to get this. I'm going to plan this. I'm going to wait. So when you put them two together, it's like, what? I want to belong to no one, but at the same time, I want to be completely composed by them. So it does that. And there are themes of control versus detachment in her relationships. So if you ask all of her exes, they might say that like there's something about her that's like, I don't care versus I care so much. And it's up to Taylor how she uses that energy, because with a square, you can make this into something really powerful or really magnetic, or you can allow it to let you just go wild. Also, with the square, she falls in love with potential because a Venus in Aquarius is an intellectual kind of love. So she will fall in love with ideas or archetypes or even like the future version of someone. But when the reality doesn't match like what's really there, the disillusionment to her is really painful, especially that Pluto's there with its involvement. And it's like she writes love like a social scientist, but then she bleeds like a poet. So her songwriting observes relationships from a distance, Aquarius, but then she still plunges into the emotional depths, her Scorpio side. And I think that she found a way to make her Venus and her Mars Pluto really work together, that tension, because it gives her music such a unique tone. Like, I'm detached, but at the same time, I feel so much. And her moon in Cancer, deep down, it shows that she really does want to feel. She really does remember everything, even though if on the surface she can speak at it from a distance or from a detached way.
Wow, that's so cool. Her whole energy is just like in the stars. They molded a great pop star who could connect to so many millions of people, and this aspect in her chart really exemplifies that. And like you're saying, the Aquarius energy and Scorpio energy, they clash. And in pop astrology on Instagram, you might read some negative things clashing in a chart, but as you can see, it's incredibly powerful. It's not doom and gloom. It's actually a way for her to connect even better with everyone around her and her fans, and deliver such deep, beautiful music. And so just a reminder that it's not all doom and gloom out there when you see squares or negative aspects. This is not a square is just creating tension, and tension is also what builds powerful things. So just want to say that so that everybody
So inspirational.
Yes, because I have my moon in Aquarius and my Pluto in Scorpio. So like, but I'm an incredibly powerfully emotional person still. It's not always easy, but it's for the greater good. And Scorpio is always for the greater good. And
Totally. My Venus in Scorpio squares a lot of my things. So
Mhm.
looking how
Yeah.
Taylor does it, it almost gives me like the way permission to be the way that I am.
Love that so much. Taylor, you're an inspiration to all of us Aquarius and Scorpio tension
Yes.
aspects in chart. Thank you so much. And finally, before we go, we did want to talk about one other thing in her chart, which is her life path. So She has her south node in Leo and her north node in Aquarius. And so Taylor came into this life with the energy of Leo already well developed. That's what the south node is. Your south node is what already is developed in your chart. And the south node in Leo, it really suggests that she's no stranger to being seen and celebrated and creatively self-expressed. Like she was a queen in a past life. Like queen energy comes very natural to her with the south node in Leo. And fame feels natural and familiar with a south node in Leo. She knows how to captivate an audience. She knows how to be center stage. She knows how to shine through personal storytelling. And her early career really reflects this through autobiographical songs and her dazzling performances and a clear understanding of how to be the star. And even as a small child, she was naturally about living from the heart and radiating a strong individual voice. She always knew that she had to write her own songs to get herself seen and heard. And that's very South Node in Leo. They really crave validation, and there are karmic ties around approval and recognition and being seen as special. So with this placement, your soul can kind of get stuck in cycles of performance and doing it for applause and seeking love through admiration. And it's funny because on the Eras Tour playlist, one of the songs that plays right before she comes on stage is the song Applause by Lady Gaga. And that's Taylor loves that song because it really exemplifies her South Node in Leo. She lives for the applause. She lives for the way you scream and cheer for her. That's the South Node. But Ashlee, what about the North Node?
Yeah, so even though she craves the applause and she's so comfortable being at the spotlight, her life path is looking to lean into the more Venus, the little more cool girl attached side of her. So her North Node in Aquarius is saying maybe her soul contract or maybe what she's learning to learn in this lifetime. It's asking her to move beyond the personal glory and more into the collective output that's going into her work. So Aquarius is the sign of innovation and rebellion and thinking of the future. It pulls her towards becoming part of something that's like way bigger than herself, shaping culture, pushing boundaries, and using her voice that's not just for self-expression, but for a spark to dialogue change. So the whole point of her being a pop star is to not sit into the glory of the applause, even though she naturally loves it. It's to make changes with her music and to really change people in general by listening to her music. So this nodal access is speaking from a journey from I or me to we. Leo is me and Aquarius is we. And this might be even a little uncomfortable for her. Like even her Venus in Aquarius, I feel like since it's so close to her North Node, that it's a little uncomfortable for her, the way how she could be a little detached when it comes to love or speaking from a distance, because her Cancer moon and her Leo South Node, it's making her want to show everything off deep inside. But then there's a programming, her Aquarius, which is saying, no, we got to chill about that. And her life path is really saying, it's okay. We're going to chill into this and we're going to be more comfortable being chill about this. And with that said, in her recent years, you can really see her North Node in Aquarius calling because she's been more vocal about political issues and the ownership of her masters, which we're going to talk about in the next episode, and even the systematic injustices that happen in the music industry. She's stepped back from being pure celebrity image making and she's moved into a space that empowers others to question the norms, question the music industry, and to take control of her own narratives.
In essence, like her South Node in Leo gave her the crown, and her North Node in Aquarius is asking her what she wants to do with it.
Yeah, that's the perfect question. And that is probably literally written into her soul contract, that she's not someone just telling a story. She's influencing the structure of the story herself.
Yes, that is her life path. And it's just amazing to watch her do it. I feel like I know how it felt to live through the Beatles now because I'm watching Taylor Swift. Like, I feel like it's really a beautiful, amazing journey to witness. And she really exemplifies that growth with all of the Scorpio in her chart. She's able to grow. And I think this North Node, South Node axis really just puts it all in perspective, like the journey that she's on in this lifetime. And that is a wrap on part 1 of our deep dive into Taylor Swift's natal chart. So we started to get a feel for her energetic signature, but trust us, we're just getting started, because in part 2, we'll actually be diving into the astrology of the major transits of her biggest career moments and some personal asteroids that tell deeper stories, and how the stars show up in her music and evolution and her cultural impact. So if you're a Swiftie, you clearly are if you listen to the end of this episode, or an astrology lover, or just here for the cosmic tea, don't miss what's coming next.
Yeah, and if this series sparks something magical for you, we would be so grateful if you shared it with your fellow stargazers and friends. Please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you're always the first in line for your next royal invitation for the stars. And of course, comment if you have anything in common with Taylor astrologically, or if you can name any songs that you feel like really embody her astrology placements. We would love to hear it. And also, please let us know if there are any other celebrities or musicians that you would like for us to do an episode on. We would absolutely love to hear from you.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. We are the Planetary Princesses, and as always, your invitation to the cosmos is open. Keep shining like the star you are, and we'll see you in the next episode, Cosmic Royal Family. Bye!